Okay, the following is a video over 1.1 notes, and this is a very, very fundamental chapter, and this is points, lines, and planes. And these are things that you've probably seen before, but we must go over them because they're the fundamental basis of what we're doing in geometry. And these are some interesting vocab words here. They're actually undefined words, technically, but we just kind of know what they are. A point is a location, okay? A location. And the drawing that we use is a single dot like this. And when we name it, it's named with a letter, okay? And it's a capital letter. So if I wanted to draw point A, I would draw point A. Okay, this is point A. You may have like another point out here, point B. Okay, so ever heard the phrase traveling from point A to point B? Really stems from a geometry term, guys. So, it's just standard stuff that you've seen before. Okay, a line is a series of points going in the same direction. Series of points going in the same direction. Pardon my handwriting. And going in the same direction, and it goes forever in both directions. Goes on forever. Okay, goes on forever. Okay, so if you had, say, 2 points, and I'll just call them, say, point C and point D, and they're connected by a line, then I would draw something like this. I would put arrows on the end of this line to signify that it is going in both directions, okay? And we name this as line CD, okay? So then we would put big arrows on either side, okay? And it doesn't matter the order in which we name it, CD, or I could write it as line DC. Okay, but if it's a line, I got to make sure I put the arrows up top. Okay, so I'll name these things so that we can tell which line we're talking about, because we'll have more than one line. A plane is a series of lines that create a surface. Okay, create a surface. Okay, and so if we were to draw this, it's kind of interesting how we would actually draw it. We kind of draw it as like this isometric view of a plane, as if you're looking on a plane from, normally we look from straight up and down, but we can look, as like from the top right, if you will. And how we name planes, we need at least 3 points on this plane, okay? And sometimes those are connected by lines. And so I would say maybe this is point E, F, and G, okay? Now, one thing we would do is we could also show something like this, where a line goes up like that, and then let me do this. Gonna draw something like this sort of dotted line, and then a line that continues down. And basically, guys, all this is a way for us to show 3 dimensions and show that, like, points F, E, and G are on this plane, and we could have another point up here, and I'll just put a point on this line. We'll call this point H. Okay, and so one thing that we could say here is that plane FEG, or FGE, doesn't really matter how we call it, we would name it using at least 3 points. Okay, sometimes you'll see like this like cursive like R or some cursive letter, and we could actually name this plane R. Okay, so we can name it either using 3 points or name it with a single letter. Okay, and we'll talk more about like how these points, lines, and planes are related to each other. So let's take a look at the first couple of problems on this. And we've got this figure here, okay? We've got this plane, we've got lines, and we've got another line that is going through the plane, okay? So let's answer these questions. It says, name a line that contains point E. Okay, so point E is down here. This is actually below the plane, okay? So the line that we would say, and we could do this a number of ways, but I would just say line EB, okay? And if I say that it's a line, I got to put arrows up here, okay? You could also call this line BE, okay? And put the arrows up like that, okay? Question 2 says, name a point contained in line N. Now, N, I forgot to mention that we can actually name lines. Let me go back to this line. We could say that, we could call this, say, line L. Okay, so sometimes lines will have this, just this kind of like cursive letter sitting there. We can call it line L, okay, if we wanted to. But if it contains 2 points, we can call it that way too. So because line N, this is line N here. Okay, the little N tells me that it's a line, and all we want is a point on that line. Okay, we could say that point A is on that line. Okay, it's right there, or we could say that point B is on that line. Okay, either one of these would work. Okay. Part 3 says, what is another name for line P? Well, we could call this, it's got points D and C on it. We can call it DC, or we could call this a line CD. Okay, either way is reasonable. And then it says, name the plane containing lines N and P. So this is line P, this is line N. We could call this point G. Okay, so, or we could call this plane G. So I could say plane G, or I could call this line, or I could call it plane, C, A, B, okay, or any combination of any point on that line. Now remember, point E is not on the plane, okay, that's below the plane, all right? Okay, and then let's go ahead and do what it says here. It says draw and label the figure for each relationship. So in number 5, point K lies on line RT. So I'm just going to draw a generic line, okay, and I'm going to put arrows at the end of this, and I'm going to put 2 points on this line and call this point R and call this point T. And point K is somewhere on this line. I can put this anywhere, okay, and I'm just going to label it point K, all right? Okay, let's take a look at number 6. It says line YP lies in plane B and contains point C, but does not contain point H. Okay, so let's just draw a generic plane here, and I'm going to go ahead and draw line YP. So I'm going to draw 2 points, and I'm going to connect those with a line. Okay. I'm going to put arrows on that line and arrows. Okay. So I'm going to call this YP. Okay, and it says in plane B. So I need to name this plane as plane B. So I'm going to put that over here in the corner. Okay. YP lies in plane B and it contains point C. So I need another point C somewhere in this. okay? Point C is on the line YP, but that line does not contain the point H. So I'm going to draw a separate point that is not on that line, and I'm going to call this point H, okay? So it's not on the line. It's still in the plane B, but it's not on the line, okay? And you can draw this a number of ways. Your lines don't have to go in this direction, but as long as you draw a picture that contains that, you're in good shape. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. Now, what we are asked to do, we've got this figure here, and it's like, think of it like this. Think of this is a plane here, but then you've got these other surfaces here. These are also planes, but they're different planes. They're not all on this. So you can think of this as like a block of cheese sitting on a piece of paper, okay? And each like face of that cheese you can think of as like a separate plane, okay? So it asks how many planes are shown in the figure. Okay, I've got plane W, okay? Now I've got plane ABC as well, but since that is on the line or on the plane W, I'm not going to contain that. That's already on the plane. But I have plane FEA or FEB or any combination of those letters. I have this plane right here, EDC, and then FDC. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I've got 5. Okay, so 5 surfaces that we can see. All right, so I'm going to call that 5 planes, okay? And it asks in point 8, how many of these planes contains point F and E? Okay, so I've got FE is on this plane here, and then it's on this top plane here. Okay, it's not, point F is not contained anywhere on this plane, and E is not contained anywhere on this back plane back here, nor are either of them on the bottom one. So it's just on this face and this face are those 2 planes. So there's just 2. Okay, and then it says name 4 points that are coplanar. Now coplanar, that word means that points are on the same plane. So points are on the same plane. Okay. And so name 4 that are coplanar. You know, I've got a bunch of options. Okay, I could do FEBA. So let me do that one. FEBA, FIBA. I don't know what that means. And then EDCB. That's another one. Okay, so DCB is another one. FDCA is another, so FDCA. And those are the only options. You can order these in any way that you want. It just asks that we name 4 points that are coplanar. So those are 4 points. All of these are different 4 points that form different planes. And so yeah, this plane does not contain 4 points, nor does the bottom one contain 4 points, just 3 points. Okay, and that brings us to question 10. It says, are points A, B, and C coplanar? And the answer is yes. Okay, those points are coplanar. They are all on point W, and that's all you need to say. Yes, they are coplanar, but that's because they are on plane W. Okay, so guys, this section is basically just naming things and drawing and making sure you can identify things and write certain things. So I hope this is helpful. Hopefully this is stuff that you've seen before. But anyway, please get started on your homework, and I hope you had a good time. I did.